Let's talk a little bit about The People versus OJ Simpson.
Sure.
You won the Emmy for that.
I did.
Did the success of that show take you at all by surprise?
Yes. I knew that it was going to be a good show, but I've been a part of other good shows that didn't quite capture people's imagination and critics' imagination the way in which this show did. I knew everything that Ryan Murphy does kind of turns to gold, and it had Cuba already attached to it, and Sarah Paulson, and John Travolta, so there's this A-list cast. I think the biggest surprise was that I was in it in the first place, right? And then, once people saw it and responded to it, and it became this water cooler sort of television event where people were talking about it the next day. You weren't saving it on your DVR. You were taking it in real time. And I can't tell you like how life has changed since that show. Like it's different. I don't know exactly how it's different. I get called Darden.
Did it change your career as well?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
I would say so. There have been opportunities that have been coming my way since People versus OJ that weren't coming before, so it's nice.
And what did you think? So you played, co-prosecutor Chris Darden.
Yeah.
What did you think of him as a character?
I thought he was an incredibly complicated individual. He knew that it was not going to be a popular position to be the black face of the prosecution against an African-American defendant. But the evidence led him to believe that OJ Simpson was guilty of a double homicide, and so he chose to stand by his convictions and practice and try this case. Even though he was warned by his community, by his family in particular, he stayed the course. And someone who cared very, very much about the African-American community, to find himself being excommunicated from that community, called a race traitor and an Uncle Tom and a sellout, really wounded him to his core. And I think more than, outside of the victims' families, the scars of that case, he still probably carries more than anybody else involved.
And did you personally follow the trial, the real trial when it was happening? And then did you have different feelings about it as you sort of re-experienced it through the drama?
I followed it. I was a freshman in college at Stamford University, so I couldn't follow it too closely because I didn't want to flunk out of school.
Right.
But I did follow it, and I remember having very strong opinions about the trial and wanting OJ Simpson to be acquitted, and not even knowing if he committed the crime or not, but knowing how many times black men had been fallen short by the criminal justice system. And so in this particular case, it wasn't just about OJ, it was about me and every other black person that I knew. And so 20 years later, having gone through the other side of things and experienced it in a whole new way, the thing that I didn't think about then was that two people had their lives brutally taken away from them, and that the prosecution was trying to speak up for Ron and Nicole. So yeah, it did change my views on the trial quite dramatically.
That's interesting. So
Yeah.
did it flip-flop?
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I understood both sides.
Yes.
I think that's the important thing. I
Yes.
think people who watch the show, instead of vilifying, people who rooted for the acquittal or vilifying people who were aghast at it, I think people have said, oh, I get it. I get why you were happy. I get why you were appalled.
There's an understanding for both sides.
Absolutely.